How long before that you had this first owl experience have you been sort of intrigued or interested in UFOs?
Well, as a 12-year-old boy, I was walking home from a high school football game. So the high school football field was close to my house, and it was what all the kids did on a Friday night. So, and this would have been October. I was living in Michigan. It was a beautiful night. I was walking home with a friend, and I wanted to be home in time to see a television series. Do you know the TV show Kolchak, the Night Stalker?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
It was a predecessor to the X-Files. It was
Okay.
about a reporter who's, looks at ghosts and zombies and vampires and stuff like that. And so we got to a point in the neighborhood, and there was this bright orange flash in the sky. And we both said the same thing. We both kind of went, "What just happened?" And all I saw was this orange flash. It felt like God flipped a light switch. Click. The sky turned bright orange. Click. This went back to normal night. Like everything, the whole sky turned bright orange. There was no noise. Then we went through the little checklist. Could it have been like a meteorite? Could it have been like a telephone pole exploding? Could it have been a plane crash? Did something? None of it made sense. It was totally quiet. It was jarring. It was really weird. And we both were like, that didn't seem right. So I got to my house. He went further into the neighborhood. I got home, and my parents were waiting for me. And I walked in the door, and they said, "Why are you out so late?" They were angry at me. I said, "I'm not out late. I said I'd be home at 9:30. I'm home at 9:30 to see the television show that starts at 10 o'clock. And they pointed at the clock, and it was 11:30. So somewhere I lost 2 hours of time, between an hour and a half to 2 hours of time. Now, if you've read stuff in the UFO literature, like that kind of thing is a telltale sign, and that's what a UFO investigator kind of keeps their eye out for. That's a red flag that something else happened. This was 1974. I didn't know any of that, so I was just bummed out that I didn't see this television show, and I was really like annoyed that my parents were mad at me for something I didn't do. Like I didn't understand why I was out so late. So the next Monday morning at school, we're sitting around with my friend, and there's a bunch of kids at the cafeteria table, and I said, "This weird thing happened on Friday night." And my friend interrupts and said, "Yeah, we saw a UFO with lights and everything." Can I swear on this show?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So he said, 12-year-old boy, and he said, "We saw a UFO." He said, "We saw a UFO with fucking lights and everything." And I remember thinking, like, I didn't see a UFO. I just saw the sky turn orange. I've since contacted him, and he does not remember the event. He does remember that my mom was angry at me for coming home late. So that is actually not uncommon within the literature. Or the literature of like UFO studies, that two witnesses will have two separate things. So that's one story beforehand, before seeing the owls.
Did you ever tell anybody about this
I told everyone.
that remembers when you told them about it?
Oh,
Like, do they remember like you telling this story prior to the whole owl?
you know what I have is I drew a picture of. I'll get to one. So that story, my friend remembers that my mom was angry, or my parents were angry, and but yeah, I don't. That's hard to know. That's
Right.
getting close to 35 years ago, 40 years ago now. So, but so I don't have any evidence of that. I did see I was at a friend's house. His name is Kenny, and it was a sleepover. I was 12 years old. It was probably right around the same time, and he pointed out the window. It might have been him or me. Pointed out the window and went like, "What's that?" And we went to the window, and there was this is actually interesting. We have a can here. So there was a coffee can shaped thing, and it was rotating at this really weird angle, and sort of descending. Actually, it was more like I can't remember. Yeah. It was descending and rotating at the same time. It had like a pencil sticking out the top of this thing. And we watched it for maybe 30 seconds, and then it just disappeared. Poof, gone. I used to say the lights went out and we couldn't see it anymore. I don't say that anymore because that's not true. What I remember clearly is that it disappeared. It vanished. But I was like too embarrassed to say that, like at the time as a 12-year-old boy. So I said the lights just turned out. I drew a picture of that same night, and I contacted the fellow, Kenny, and he also doesn't remember it. But he said he talked to his mom, and his mother remembers us drawing it. He and I both drew it, and I still have the picture that we drew that night after seeing the coffee can shaped craft.
Do you have any of these drawings published on your website?
Yep, all of them published on my website.
Let's
They're
pull
in
up
the
his website so we can actually show some of this stuff. That'd probably be a good idea. What's your website called?
book. Hidden Experience. It's all one word. And then the image of the coffee can thing would be out Kenny's window. That would be there's a little search box on the right-hand sidebar. You can type in out Kenny's window. And it should pop right up.
That'll be good if we're talking about things, whatever. We can pull up some of the
far out.
illustrations
There it
on your website. And your friends that you were sleeping over with, did they remember this experience?
No, I only talked to Kenny.
Does Kenny doesn't remember it, or he does?
He does not remember
He does not remember
But his
it.
mother remembers us drawing it, and I still have the drawing. Yeah, you can see it on the right-hand sidebar. Scroll down a little bit. And there, you can search this blog. You can just type in out Kenny's window.
If you just
You just went back.
go up to right
Yeah,
there,
there,
search
right on the right-hand
little
sidebar.
right-hand sidebar. Or no, down below that,
Search
right there.
this blog, yeah.
Out Kenny's window.
Yeah, there we go. So there's the image. So that's
Okay.
that's an updated drawing that I did recently.
Okay.
And
You
then
just
scroll down
punch
a
it
little
on
bit.
that, Jordan.
You can double-click it, and it'll show up big.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a drawing I did recently that captures what I saw. But if you scroll down back to the blog there, there's an image that I drew. There's sort of a strange motion. There was an accompanying little dot of light, a pinpoint of light that keep on going down. It should. There we go. There's the drawing I did that night.
So you drew this the same night you saw it?
Yep. Within minutes. Both Kenny and I drew it.
Wow.
Kenny doesn't have it. So yeah, you can double click on that. It'll grow up big.
It's not working.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. So, there was an accompanying little dot of light in the sky. So you can see that I'm kind of, it's the dots are numbered 1, 2, 3. So when those little dots, it kind of went blink, blink, blink. Those dots were not exceptional. That would have looked just like an airplane in the night sky. Nothing unusual about those dots. But when that dot, like the coffee can was descending, the dot was traversing across the sky. When those two met up, that's when it disappeared.
Wow.
So
ever since those two experiences, you've kind of been intrigued by UFOs, by UFO phenomenon.
I've certainly been intrigued. I didn't start going around 1992 or 3. I got a UFO book. I just bought it. I said, well, this is a topic that interests me. And the book was fascinating. It was called The UFO Casebook by Randalls. The author's name is Randalls. And then I bought another one. And then all of a sudden that was all I was reading. And that's almost, 25 years ago to 1990. Yeah, 1992. So, and there's one more story, which I also did an illustration for. I was 30 years old. I was living in Maine in 1992, which is interesting. It was about the same time I started reading UFO books. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I was alone at the house. And it felt like there was a bright light coming in the window. Now, we had a deer motion sensor light out in the driveway. And I kind of thought, like, what's the bright light? And I sat up on my elbow and looked out the window. And there were 5 gray aliens walking towards the house. And they were backlit by a bright white light. And I have an illustration of that if you want to bring it up too.
Yeah, we will.
Type in bedroom window. It should come right up in that little box.
Gray aliens.
So the prototypical gray alien is the one you see on like the snowboarder bumper stickers and stuff like that. It's the skinny little being. So yeah, you can double click that. That should get big.
Holy cow! What
So
the
that's
hell?
and I did have a little dinosaur on my I did have a little dinosaur on my
You
my
did have
windowsill. Yeah. So, and
and they were
and so
they
I'm
looked just like that. They were standing in a perfect line like that.
Well, it was funny. They actually were walking on the snow, and I tried to draw them walking, and it distracted from it. So it looked like they were trying to dance or something. It looked like, but they were all in a line like that. Like to try to draw them walking was a little awkward. So they were actually walking, but I drew them standing, and they would have been walking. Now that light in the background would have been about the size of a washing machine. Like it would have been perfect. It was like a landed flying saucer, but that's not my memory. And now, is it okay if I just go on about this? Because this.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So
Please.
This accompanying this, like I got up the next morning and dismissed it completely as a dream, right? So but when I saw this out the window, I looked at this thing. This is scary, right? This should have been, I should have like jumped out of bed. I should have like locked the doors. I should have like grabbed a knife and defended myself. I didn't. I heard a voice in my head that said very calmly, now is the time to put your head on the pillow and shut down. And that's exactly what I did. I just rolled over and went to sleep. What also accompanied that moment was this sensation. It was dreamlike, but it wasn't a dream. I feel strongly that it was not a dream, but it was certainly dreamlike. There was a weird clarity. There was a weird quietness to it. There was this sort of head in the fishbowl quality to it. I have since talked to many. I didn't have any place for this memory, this experience. I could not place this. I just nope, not going to deal with this. This was a dream. I'm not going there. But since then, I have talked to so many other UFO witnesses or witnesses that have had close-up sightings. I talked to one woman, and she described seeing a UFO from a car. She was like on a street in LA, and a flying saucer flew over her car and got right above her. And she has some distorted time stuff with that event. And she said to me, when you have two magnets and you try to push them together, they go click, and you pull them apart and you switch one halfway, and then you try to push them together, they'll sort of push against each other. There's this kind of warbly sort of energy she said, being that close to the UFO, that flying saucer, was like being in between the two magnets in that warbly, weird energy. And when she said that, it was like, she knows. That's exactly what it felt like. Like that's the best description I've ever had of that sensation. Within the literature, that's often referred to as the Oz factor. It's not that the scene is quiet, it's that it's too quiet. It's like all the sound is sucked out. So I was seeing that out my window. I had this distorted sense of reality. And I have felt that a few more times in other experiences, but that to me was the part I couldn't dismiss. I could dismiss it as a dream. I don't really dream that I'm in my own bedroom, right? I don't dream that I sit up in my own bed. I'm always in some other place in my dreams. But that night I felt like I sat up in bed. I saw that out the window. It probably lasted 20 seconds. And then I heard the voice in my head that said, now is the time to put your head on the pillow and shut down. And the next morning, I never even bothered to go out and look if there were footprints in the snow.